Hello there, John here. Just a quick kind of vloggy thing. I define myself as a goth because I tend to like the dark side of things, and I tend to dress all in black, a certain style of black though. It's not often I do these, but I feel I'm just going to have a bit of a rant. It's nothing major, it's just what I've come across, and a few other people have come across it fairly recently in their lives when it comes to being goth and describing themselves as goth and so on. I've done a blog about it on my website, so if you want to read it fully in there you can, but I'm going to read it out to you anyway. But if you want to go through it and highlight certain points or whatever yourself, you can. It's called Goths and Gothic Music, a rant. I'll just bring it up and I'll read it. Okay. It says, well, where do I start here? Let's start with the elitists. Those being goths who pretty much wear the full on black Victorian influenced clothing and only listen to gothic music, and that being the genre of music that came around about the end of the era of punk, and they're also influenced by 80s romantics and stuff like that. So it's that kind of era, kind of punk 80s romantics, kind of late 70s, early 80s kind of thing. There are bands such as Bauhaus, Joy Division, Susie Sue and the Banshees, that kind of stuff. And this is where I get my little niggle and rant from. I haven't put that bit in there, but you know. Now that's where I'm putting. So apparently, according to these elitists, you can only be considered a goth if you listen to this type of music and those bands. I think that's a load of crap, basically. But I'll go on. But upon recently listening to these bands on YouTube, to look at them, you can see the punk and 80s romantic influence in their image more than the goth, i.e. they don't wear black, except for Susie Sue and the Banshees, you know, and that kind of like later goth. But you know, stuff like Joy Division and Bauhaus, they weren't wearing full on black, they weren't wearing the face makeup. So, as I state here, so I ask you, the elitists, why do you wear such things if these bands mean so much to you? If these bands make you so gothic, why do you dress in black? Why do you wear the heavy makeup? You know, why don't you wear traditional clothes as worn by the ever so popular but precious bands? I put, you know, you should wear kind of like fitted trousers and baggy shirts in kind of random kind of things. So I go on to put, if you wear black, surely that comes from the more stereotyped gothic image, which doesn't stem from the music, but from a totally different subculture, i.e. the gothic Victorian clothing era. In fact, most of it comes from when Queen Victoria, after Albert died, she wore nothing but black, which is where Victorian goth comes from. Again, I haven't put that bit in there. So what, in fact, if you're so goth, why don't you go listen to traditional gothic music? That being the music of the Gothic era, i.e. when Gothic architecture was around several centuries ago. Because that is when, in my opinion, as I put here, that being a far past the music that was around at the same time as Gothic architecture, brackets, which in my opinion is the true start of the Gothic movement. Because now I studied art history. The term goth stems way back, way before 1980s gothic kind of music. You know, it's annoying. And then I go on to say, now don't get me wrong here, I'm not having a go at all goths, just those elitists. After all, goths these days can be in different forms. You have cyber goths, Victorian goths, trad goths, goth metal goths, to name just a few. You've also got pastoral goths, which are completely different. These Yes, they're better attempts too. Yet these, due to their image and lack of traditional goth music taste, doesn't make them a goth. Does it? Does it not? No, come on, get real. As long as you respect its origins and adapt it to how you want to stand out, surely that's all that matters, right? After all, the Gothic movement was about being different. It was about being the outcast. It was about being on the dark side of life. It was about an infatuation with life and death and its intricacies. It was about kind of the human mind, the human condition, the psyche of all the dark things on life, like why kind of murderers would go out and murder, finding out why these things happened. It's the love of the colour black. Then I go on to say, I consider myself a goth. So again, not a rant at goths, but I don't listen to the traditional Gothic music. I don't wear the makeup, though I do love that image. I do love the Gothic kind of white face, black eyeliner, black makeup, like lip liner, nails, all that sort of stuff. I do love that stuff. Or even when you introduce a little bit of colour to kind of contrast the dark and white. And I think that is brilliant. My favourite people, to give them a little bit of a shout out, are Toxic Tears. I think her kind of image is brilliant. And Bishop, also known as Jude Bishop, on Instagram, Twitter. I don't think she's on Twitter. Should be, I'm not sure. And YouTube. These are like the biggest people that I follow. I follow some more, but they're the ones that I tend to follow a little bit more closer. So I put, to me, my Gothic influences come from heavy metal bands, such as Lacuna Coil, which is an Italian Gothic band. Within Temptation, which is a symphonic metal band from, I think it's Norway or something like that, I'm not sure, Finland, something like that kind of area. Now these bands, I'm sure, will have gotten some of their influences from the traditional goth bands, such as Bauhaus, Joy Division, but it's a totally different genre altogether. So, also, I love bands such as The Prodigy. Keith Flint died a few weeks back now, and it hit me really hard, because normally, for those who do know me, this isn't me. Normally I have mohawks inspired by Keith Flint and The Prodigy. So as we'll go on to say, which is about as far away from goth music as you can get. So does that make me not a goth? Because I listen to electronic music and music such like that. I mean, I also like the Chemical Brothers as well, but similar genre, but not quite as good. And I put note, Marilyn Manson and Cradle of Filth are not goth bands. As shocking as may come to some of you, I'm sure. But I put, yes, that's right, people, you read it correctly. Marilyn Manson is industrial metal of sorts, mixing it with new metal and a bit of goth kind of metal. But he is not full-on gothic metal. It is not gothic music, it is not goth metal. Just because he wears makeup and shaves his eyebrows and looks a bit differently, people have just kind of clung on to him and gone, "Ooh, look, he's a goth," because he looks a bit different. But he is not gothic music. He will admit himself he is not a goth. And Cradle of Filth, they are in fact either black or death metal. Again, not death metal. They tend to have influences on occasion, and little intricacies that are kind of connected to goth, like with the orchestras on stuff like Cruelty and the Beast. But again, they are not gothic metal. Loads of people say, "Oh, I'm a goth because I listen to Cradle of Filth." No. Granted, you might be a goth, but it's not because of Cradle of Filth, because Cradle of Filth aren't goth. So, but don't get me wrong, I love these bands. Cradle of Filth is my second favourite band to come out of the UK, which is obviously The Prodigy being the first to come out of the UK. But who doesn't love annoying people by playing Marilyn Manson? You know, again, that's kind of why most people like Marilyn Manson, because he's alternate, he's different, he speaks his mind, and it's the controversy around it, which is why most people kind of cling to him. So, but anyway, rant over. I just wanted to say, being goth is about a style of much more than just music, more than just an image, more than just a lifestyle. It's about being you in a way that only you can understand. And if anyone else wants to tag along and be your friend or goth, then so be it. Which is it, really. You know, it's goths have always been the outcasts. We don't have a lot of friends, but those friends that we do tend to have tend to be of similar style. You know, as long as you are true to yourself, and whether that's being a pastel goth or a cyber goth or whatever, as long as you're true to who and how you want to represent yourself, you can call yourself a goth. It shouldn't matter if you don't listen to those goth bands that I did mention. I don't listen to those bands, but I still consider myself a goth. I don't always dress goth, but again, I still consider myself to be a goth, because like I said, I like the dark side of life. I listen to gothic metal. I'm interested in the human mind, the human psyche, the human condition. It's always interested me. You know, I've got book upon book about serial killers and cannibals and mass murderers. I know I've been into those since like the early 90s, like when I was like 10 or 11. You know, before it became famous, because before this whole kind of, who was it? Ted Bundy. Before those tapes came out, before they made a film about him, I knew about him about a decade or two before it all became kind of in the limelight. You know, it's frustrating, which is why I've had to have that rant. But anyway, you know, I think, yeah, now hopefully you've watched this and listened to it and you've got your own opinions on it. If you have, you know, let me know, and I will try and get back to you, and we'll start a discussion, and I'll point you to a few people that I think who've had troubles and so on. And I'll see you all in another video. You know, do the whole like and subscribe and comments and all that. You know what you're doing. You know, do all that, and I'll see you all in another video. Bye.
Thank you.